Hello everyone and welcome. Now in the last lesson we added pipe spawning. The thing is the position was always the same exact thing. So every time a pipe spawns in, it's the same exact position. And we only made it spawn one time. So we're gonna make it a timer. So whenever the timer finishes, it'll spawn another one and another one after that. Now we're gonna make it a countdown. So whenever it finishes, it spawns. Whenever it finishes the countdown, it spawns in the pipes. So let's go into the pipe spawner script. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add two float variables. The first one is private float time between spawn. The second one, we're gonna duplicate it and we're gonna call it public, so it'll show in the editor. We call it start time between spawn. Now what we're gonna do is this float right here, I put it as private, so it won't show in the editor in Unity. But what this is basically counting down. So this is what we're gonna use to count down. This is the start time between spawn. So this will show in Unity because it's public. It'll show in the engine as a float variable. So right now I'm gonna type in the code and I'm gonna talk about the logic later on. So if time between spawn is less than or equals to 0, then what we want to do is we want to spawn in the pipe, and we want time between spawn equals start time between spawn. So if the timer finishes, if the timer is less than or equal to 0, we want to spawn in the pipe in the position, in the pipe spawner's position and the pipe spawner's rotation. And then after that, we want the time between spawn to equal start time between spawns. So it goes back to a fixed value. We're gonna make it 5 again, or depends on what you set this as. So if I set this as 3, whenever it finishes, it's gonna set this time between spawn to 3, and it'll keep on looping and looping. So else time between spawn minus equals time dot delta time. Perfect. So what this basically is that we're gonna type in, if we're gonna type in time between spawn equals time between spawn minus time dot delta time, it'll be the same exact thing, but this little equator in C#, or this little sign in C#, which basically means minus equals, it's basically the same as time between spawn equals time between spawn minus time dot delta time. Basically the same exact, but this just saves more time. And so what this basically is that time between spawn equals time between spawn times that time dot delta time. So time dot delta time is basically the timer. We're gonna count down, so it's basically like time moving. So time between spawn minus time dot delta time. You can think about it as time moving every couple of seconds. So it's actually minus. So it's decrementing. It's going downwards. It's getting less and less. So we're just gonna delete this because we already finished that. Alright, so if we save it and if we go back into Unity, alright, so I'm gonna set time between spawn to something like 3 or maybe 3.2 for good luck. Now if we play, oops, I accidentally made it equals minus. It's actually minus equals. Alright, so after this one comes another one. After 3.2 seconds comes another one. After 3.2 seconds comes another one. We make it something like 1. We'll see the difference. It's gonna be a clear difference. 1, 1, 1. So yeah, it's a clear difference. Perfect. Now the one right here didn't save because we were in play mode. That's why. Okay, pretty cool. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the position different every time. So every time right here it spawns in the transform.position and transform.rotation. But if we see the Flappy Bird game, the thing is that, well, it's not the same exact position every time it spawns in the new pipes. If it were something like that, it'll be very, very boring and people will get bored of it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna randomize the position, and we're gonna keep the rotation, but we're gonna just randomize the position. So how are we gonna do that? Well, we're gonna type in. Alright, so basically we're gonna randomize it, but from what range to what range? We're gonna randomize just this Y position, but from what range to what range? So right here, I'm gonna check the range. Right here, it's the position. I'm gonna check the range because it's in the game view. I'm just testing it out, so it only shows this. That's the, at least it only shows this. This should be the maximum. And when you want to check the minimum, it should be something like this. Perfect. So from minus 3.32, I'm gonna open up a notepad. From minus 3.32 to what? To what degree? I think it was 2.14. Correct? Yeah, 2.17, 2.17. Alright, so now let's just delete this one. It was just a quick little test. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the position as a vector 3 coordinates. So a private vector 3 spawn pause. Perfect. Pause equals new vector 3. I'm gonna open in. We're gonna call this one transform dot position dot x on the x-axis, float y pose. Alright, and we're gonna randomize the y pose. So y pose equals a random dot range. Alright, from what range to what range? We checked it. Notepad, we checked it. We want it from minus 3.32. Make sure to put in the f as for float. And to what? To 2.17. Also f. Alright, so what we did right here is we basically created a float y position. A float is a data type that stores decimal numbers, which is what this is basically. Which is what, if we open up bird, or you know what, open in add pipe, if we see this right here, it's the y position. It's a float, it's a decimal number, so we want this to be the decimal number. And we added a vector 3 spawn pause, so we can put it right here because this only accepts vector 3. If it were to accept floats, for example, we should have put in right here point x. So it's actually that exact float, but it only accepts vector 3 coordinates. So pipe vector 3 transform dot position and the vector 3 of transform dot rotation. So we're creating a new vector 3 right here, and we're gonna input it right here. So a y pause and dot position dot z. Perfect. Now we're gonna just take this spawn pause, gonna copy it, and we're gonna put it instead of the transform dot position. Very cool. Now if we go and test it out, let's just make this 3.4. Yep, I'm pretty sure I put it, yeah, I should have put it right here. Check this one and put it right here. So put it in the update function, not in the start function. Oops, that was an accident. That was an accident too. Alright, so it works. It actually works. So it's always randomized. It's never the same exact thing. But the thing is, right here is a bit of a problem. As we can see, the pipes are going over the ground. We actually want them to go under the ground. So like the ground is showed first, and then under it are the pipes. So what we can do is, it's a really easy fix. Go to pipes, go to inside the pipe prefab, and we're gonna go to the sprite renderer. We're gonna set the order layer to something like 0.1, and go to the other pipe and set the order layer to something like 0.1. We're gonna go to our ground. Just gonna check one. Yeah, it's all probably 0. So instead of changing them all, we just change the pipes. Instead of changing them all to a higher number, we just change the pipes to a lower number. It does the same exact thing. And as we can see, it works perfect. And it works perfectly. And if we can see right here in the hierarchy, it deletes every single pipe when it goes out of bounds. It deletes. Very cool. Now we almost have something of a working prototype right here.